So we'll definitely be talking about why I have my filters attached to the cage of my camera, but in this video we're primarily checking out the rig that I put together for the Fuji XH2S over the past year. So some of the footage in this video was shot in my old studio, and it's taken me a while to actually get this project finished just because it's pretty difficult to get a camera like this to the point where you can finally call it final. This whole situation really started when I was looking into getting a new camera, a cinema camera, C80 or a C400 from Canon. Instead of that, I actually bought myself a Fuji XH2S for €1,600 second hand. When the Fuji XH2S first released, I actually bought one, and this is the second Fuji XH2S. Decided that these will be the permanent YouTube camera rigs, right? I don't need much more than 6.2K. What I need is the infrastructure to be able to use them properly. And that's where the Pyro S here comes in. This is a wireless video transmission system. These devices are really simple. You attach your battery to them, turn them on, and then they transmit the video feed to the other unit. Now this wireless transmission system is probably one of the biggest upgrades in this kit because I can actually see what I'm filming, and it enabled me to do a lot more complex shots. I got really lucky with this new release of the Sigma 17-40 f1.8. As I was about to step over to the Canon system, I didn't. I bought the XH2S, and then this one released, and I was so happy because I had been shooting with primes, specifically the Viltrox 23 and the 33 f1.4 for the longest time. This lens completely replaces everything I have in my kit. So when you're rigging out cameras, you'll more often than not come to the conclusion that the thing that you've bought isn't so useful, and you end up just chucking that in the cupboard. And eventually you'll find that you've acquired so much gear that finally you can build something that's actually usable. The concept I was going for was a single switch that turned on the entire system. So I have this V-mount plate here that has a button on the side that turns off the power for the entire system, and it has a lot of ports on there. I knew from the start that I would have to modify stuff pretty heavily because most camera rigs out there aren't that subtle. They're not small, they're pretty hefty and pretty big, and I wanted to keep this thing as low profile as possible, which is why I modified these rod mounts by drilling out the thread over there. In that way I can attach this PGY quick release plate, and that makes it a little bit more lower profile than the normal base plate you would put on one of these rigs. I actually really looked out with this one as well, and it provided a lot of cable routing options, which I'll showcase later on in the video. The quick release plates that I'm using are from PGY, they're Arca-Swiss compatible, and I think they've updated their design recently because these will snap loose under pressure. I've actually had a camera drop on me before because of these quick release plates. I still really like them though, and the newer design actually fixes that issue, so definitely check those out. Now for the types of content that I do where I'm working with machinery a lot, I have a lot of dust in the space sometimes, and working with concrete, that kind of thing, I really like the 17-40 from Sigma here because it's internal zooming. Now, of course I'd love to have internal NDs on this camera, but the best option I've found so far is the Helix system. The one thing that I did miss out on though is being able to put a matte box up front, which I could very much use, but the Helix filters are too big to fit inside of this little matte box here. Of course the main benefit of going for the Helix system is how quickly you can actually swap out filters, just because it has some magnets in there and a locking mechanism. Just really nice. It's expensive, but it's nice. That left the Pyro S. I wasn't really sure where to put this thing. It's a very cumbersome little device, to be quite honest with you, and I wasn't really sure how to mount this, but eventually I just put it on the top and also used it somewhat as a handle if I wanted to do handheld shots. And this is actually how I've been using the camera over the past year or half a year. It balances on the gimbal, and that of course brings in the B-roll stand system. So this thing is connected to the Pyro S and it has the audio system integrated. It allows me to see what I'm shooting over the shoulder. So most of the footage I shoot is filmed in this way. Projects often stagnate at a point where they're good enough to get by, but they're not perfect yet. And I think that's a real shame. I think we should really put in the extra effort here to make this whole system perfect. And while I was busy with this, I had some ideas on the filter system as well, because I really want the filters to mount onto the camera body. And that means we also need to hide the Pyro S someplace else, because the only realistic place I see to put the filters is up on the top there. I also really wanted a proper top handle for handheld shots because my fingers hurt pretty badly when I'm shooting in that way where I'm holding onto the Pyro S. If you're doing any amount of handheld work, it really pays off to balance the system properly. So we need a good center of gravity. We also need this thing to still be able to be balanced on the gimbal, and I still want to be able to have this thing in underslung mode as well. Eventually I found a spot for the Pyro S, which is just behind the camera on the V-mount battery plate that kind of hides it, and it's still able to be mounted on a gimbal, so that was pretty neat. I've had so many projects where the fix is just to 3D scan some components and model out a 3D print for it, and this project is no different. 3D printing is extremely useful for all kinds of hobbies, whether it's flying drones or making camera rigs like this. I highly recommend getting a 3D printer and learning how to draw stuff out in CAD. I can also highly recommend the software Shaper 3D. Not sponsored, but I've been using it since the beginning of this channel. It's extremely quick, extremely intuitive, and it's possibly become one of my favourite pastimes as well. This design is pretty simple. I just gave it all the mounting holes I could possibly think of and gave it a little L shape over there so that we can actually mount the Pyro S to it. Now, because the Pyro S has these antennas which are pretty long, I don't want these to interfere with the handling of the camera, so I gave them some gaps at the end over there, and we can bend the antennas into these little holes, and that will keep them in place. If you would like access to this design, I'm going to upload this to the project page of PCBWay, which is also the sponsor of this video. PCBWay offers a lot of high-end manufacturing services ranging from PCB production and assembly, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and of course also 3D printing. If you don't have access to a 3D printer or CNC machines like this, you can always upload a file to PCBWay. You get an instant quote for what something is going to cost, and then you send it off to them. A couple of days later it arrives in your mailbox. And you can 3D print stuff in pretty unique materials as well. One of the materials that I like using is 3D printing stuff in metal. That's also how I created the multi-tool video. If you haven't seen that video yet, definitely check it out. The 3D print came out looking really good. I printed this one in PLA reinforced with carbon fiber. So it's pretty strong and it's really lightweight as well. I don't have a whole lot of camera bolts laying around anymore, so I'm just using 2 bolts here to put it in place, and that should be good enough. Then I'm putting the antenna through the holes over there, bending the Pyro S into its place. I don't think you should do this too often because I'm not entirely sure if the antenna are supposed to be bending in this way. But after that we can add a HDMI angled connector and then connect a HDMI cable to that. I was really happy with this cable routing option. It just goes underneath that plate over there, keeps it nicely in place, and it also reduces any risk of the cable putting stress on the Pyro S because it's nicely locked in there. After that we can re-add the PGY quick release plate to the top over there, and this is so that I can remove the camera really quickly and turn it back into a stills camera, right? If I want to take it with me or if I want to shoot a thumbnail, I can just unlock that really quickly. In terms of cable management, I'm just squeezing it in between the camera and the mount over here, which is not great. I'd rather actually 3D print something to hold the cables in there permanently. And then I'm putting another angled connector on the HDMI part of the camera. As I mentioned before, if I drop this thing in a bag, I don't want to worry about the ports over there. Eventually the balance of this camera is just incredibly good. You can see that if I move my fingers to the pre-designed spots on the handle, that it balances out in whatever position. So if I put pressure on my front 2 fingers, it will angle the camera up, and if I put pressure on my rear 2 fingers, it angles it down. So I often switch between the 2 to 5 V&D and the 6 to 9 V&D, and it takes a little bit of time to do that. And I've always wondered if it would be worth it to add the filter system to the camera body itself. So I went onto Amazon and I bought myself a rear defender plate for a normal thread mount filter kit, drilled a hole through the middle of it so that we can actually attach it to a standard hot shoe mount. In this case I ordered one that was a couple steps too small, and then used these step-up rings to get a little bit of distance between the mounting solution and the actual filter, and that's how we have enough room to mount it properly. I really like the Helix system for how quickly it can attach to the front of your lens, but I often lose quite a lot of time on set when I have to attach the 2 defender plates and then put it in my pocket, because I'm not putting these filters in my pocket without the defender plates on there, right? So the other option is throwing it in the camera bag, but then you're walking to your camera bag every time you need to swap out the filter. So for me personally, when I'm shooting out in mixed conditions, this is going to save me a ton of time. And it's easy to remove, it's just a simple hot shoe mount, so it's not on there all of the time. But for shooting YouTube videos as well, super useful, because sometimes I take the filter off, I put it on a table someplace, and then the next time around I need it, I'm searching for the thing for like half an hour because I didn't put it back in its proper spot. It's just optimized, it's nice, it's clean, and it's small. And I hope you enjoyed the build. I hope it gave you some inspiration, and hopefully see you in the next video.